Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The LA Dodgers have been stinking it up of late. What gives? Also, the Eagles are looking to run it back, but are checking their depth first. And Michael Penix Jr. has some dog in him.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The LA Dodgers apparently forgot what it's like to win a baseball game, or at least to win in any sort of measure. They were 9 games up. They're now a game back in the NL West. Travis Rogers from Locked On Dodgers joins me now. And it's not been great the last 33 games here. 12-21, not what we expect out of this Dodgers team.
No, it is by far the worst stretch of baseball they've played. Not this season, but in the last several seasons. Yeah. There's been there's lags and valleys in any baseball season, but this is brand new because it's not just a week or 2 weeks. It's a couple of months really that they've gone through and have not looked like themselves. And it seems to have been one thing or the other. They haven't been able to get all the things fixed all at the same time. And right now it's the bullpen that is really the soft spot of this team.
Well, and it's coming at the worst possible time because the Padres, they're winners of 5 straight. They look like if there's a team that is best equipped, at least the way they're playing right now, to challenge the Milwaukee Brewers in the National League, it looks like the Padres.
Yeah, the Padres did a lot of stuff at the deadline. Mason Miller comes into their bullpen. They get Laureano starting catcher. They add a lot of new bodies. And, A.J. Preller, their general manager, is one of those guys that goes for it seemingly every year since they've kind of decided to take a different approach. The Dodgers far more cautious at the deadline. I know Dodger fans were very anxious to see them try to do something in the back end of the bullpen. They didn't do anything. They go and they get Brock Stewart. He has been bad since he got here. He's now hurt. He's on the IL along with seemingly every other reliever that the Dodgers have had this season. For the first time in a long time, it's not a matter of if they get their guys back, everything's going to be okay. It's if they get their guys back, will it be okay? And the answer is TBD, because they just, they're missing not 1 or 2, but more like 3 or 4 or 5 guys in that bullpen. And for all 4 or 5 to come back and for all 4 or 5 to hit the ground running, that's a lot to ask. I think the offense will be fine. I think the starting pitching will be very good, but you know how baseball is in 2025. Guys don't throw 8 innings anymore. They throw 6 innings. That's a lot of outs to get with a bullpen that's got a lot of questions.
Think about what you just said, Travis. The San Diego Padres went all in, and the LA Dodgers played it cautious. Like how does that, speaking of playing, how does that play with Dodgers fans?
Not well. Not well at all. And, I think the one bit of good news that Dodger fans can feel good about is that Andrew Friedman has been very aggressive in years past, that when he sees something that he likes, he will spend the assets, he will spend the money to go get it. There obviously wasn't something that turned his head to the point where he felt like he was going to do the Dodgers a lot of good this season and not put them in a tough spot moving forward.
They didn't get this team at Aldi either, Travis.
No, that's the other thing, is that they do think that the guys that are not here but are on the team, whether that's Kirby Yates, whether that's Tanner Scott, Michael Kopech, a lot of their bullpen guys that they were counting on this year that either haven't been here much at all. Blake Trinan is back but hasn't looked like himself. That they will round into shape by the time that you get into September and hopefully October. All season long, Dodger fans are saying, once we get to October, everything will be fine. Well, for the first time in a really long time, it's not when we get to October, it's if we get to October. They're not on top of their own division. They're not the number 1 wild card team. That would be the Chicago Cubs. It is currently constructed right now. So they would be on the road playing a wild card series, which is, even for a team that is loaded the way that they are offensively and star power up and down the batting order, that's a lot to ask to go on the road and win a couple of games.
I would have to think, though, if you're going to be glass half full, the idea of, hey, look, stars win in October and the Dodgers still have those marquee names. I mean, they still have the guys that when the fans come to the ballpark, they want to see those guys play.
Yeah, look, I it's been a rough month and a half or so, but I have not lost hope. I have not lost the idea that a back-to-back World Series championship is still very much in the cards because, like you said, Shohei Ohtani is probably going to win another MVP. He's having a fantastic season. Mookie Betts, for the first time all season, the last 2 weeks, has started to look like Mookie Betts. Freddie Freeman, after a little bit of a dip, he's back being Freddie Freeman. Max Muncy hit the ground running. He's looked really good. You look at their rotation, Tyler Glasnow, since coming back, has been fantastic. Blake Snellson's coming back, has been fantastic. Don't look now, Clayton Kershaw still doing a lot of good work there. Yoshinobu Yamamoto has been the one guy who has taken his turn in the rotation every single time this year. He's been good way more often than he's been bad. So there's your list of stars. All of those guys have done a really good job. But just kind of going back to a year ago, it was Teoscar Hernandez. It was Tommy Edman. It was Michael Kopech. It was Blake Trinan, guys that you don't mention first that kind of got them across the finish line. Walker Buehler, another one. And none of those guys have really been carrying their weight this season.
It's all the players that make up the entire Brewers roster, which is the funny part of the way that this season has gone, that these are the two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to team building. And we're seeing the different outcomes. Last thing I have to ask you, Travis. Are we just numb to the Ohtani thing at this point? Like, it seems like it should be the leading story every night in some ways, because it's just what he's doing, the way he's doing it. We haven't seen it in 100 years.
No, and Peter, I try to make a point of that on Locked On Dodgers as often as I can, that do not get used to this because it probably has never happened before and it probably will never happen again. Just let this wash over you as it's happening. The starting pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers last night led off the game with a triple. I don't know the last time that happened, if that has ever happened before.
Probably never.
And he made it look very easy. He's had an extra base hit in 10 games in a row. Like I said, he's going to win the MVP, probably going away because he's having an offensive season. He's going to hit another 50 home runs. Here's one little nugget I'll give you. No one in the history of the Los Angeles Dodgers had ever hit 50 home runs, ever. He's going to do it in his first 2 seasons. Okay,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and this isn't the Florida Marlins or a team that just relatively speaking just got here. This is the LA Dodgers. They've been around the block a few times. Never, and he's going to go 2 for 2.
You can stay up to date all year on the LA Dodgers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Dodgers on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. How are the Eagles faring this preseason? Before we get to that, the University of Kansas is now swimming in cash. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Perhaps you believe in the Green Bay Packers, that they would win Super Bowl 59, or maybe you have some division winner dark horses you'd like to parlay. Visit the FanDuel Sportsbook app and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. If you thought the money in college athletics had gotten big, wait till you hear this one. Kansas just landed a game-changing $300 million gift from alumnus David Booth, the largest in school history and one of the biggest ever in college athletics. $75 million will help finish the east side of the David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium after the 2025 season, while the rest creates a new revenue stream for Jayhawks athletics. Booth already gave $50 million back in 2017, but says this $300 million has helped to build the future for KU. For the fans, of course, that future includes a shiny new home opener against Fresno State in August and the stadium makeover that's anything but phasing out. Over on the diamond, the Mets might be backsliding, but the Phillies don't seem too interested in taking a larger lead in the NL East.
The Philadelphia Phillies managed to get 10 hits in a ball game and managed just 2 runs from those 10 hits as they fall to the Washington Nationals 3-2 in game 1 of the 4-game series in D.C. Trey Turner came up with 3 of those hits, all 3 infield singles, including the Phillies' only hit with a runner in scoring position as they went 1 for 6 on the night, but the Phillies never got that big hit on the night. Jesus Luzardo started the game for the Phils. He went 6 strong innings, allowing just 1 run, And then in the 7th inning, when he came back out, that's when things took a turn for the worst. He would load the bases, bookending a double with 2 walks, nobody out with the bases loaded. Luzardo goes out, Kerkering comes in, gets 1 out, and then surrenders a 2-run single to flip the script on the Phillies and hand them a 3-2 loss. Zach Wheeler will be on the hill for Game 2 Friday night at 6:45.
Max Scherzer dealt for the Jays in a 2-1 win over the Cubs. Yeah, he's still doing that.
That was a massive win for the Toronto Blue Jays as they beat the Kansas City Royals 4-2. And fans were starting to get a little bit worried about this ball club. Before this game, when you look at the rotation, you look at what the pitching staff has done, they gave up 58 runs in 6 games. You're not going to win a lot of baseball games putting up numbers like that, but there was a huge bounce back performance today. It was led by one man. Who would have thought, after everything that this guy put us through earlier on in the season, that Max Scherzer would be the one to get the train back on the tracks and give the Toronto Blue Jays a huge performance after the starting pitching has suffered immensely in these last few games. But 6 innings pitched, only 1 earned run, 5 punchies on the day. Max Scherzer has been very good recently, and it's been huge for the Toronto Blue Jays ball club. I mean, just look at the numbers to start the season and the last 4 games. This guy has really figured his stuff out and is making it a very tough decision down the stretch on what they're going to do with this starting rotation when Shane Bieber comes back. David Schneider, massive at-bat. Ernie Clement with a line drive single as well. But Bo Bichette is once again leading the major leagues in hits. Easiest comeback story of all time. Don't know why people were doubting this guy. But shout out to Bo Bichette for everything he's done for this baseball team up to this point. Very scary situation in this game. First it was Alejandro Kirk, then George Springer. And now Tyler Heineman takes a foul ball off the mask. Luckily, he's not showing any concussion symptoms. But you never want to see anyone go down in a baseball game, especially Tyler Heineman having a career year. Shout out to the Miami Marlins for making the New York Yankees contemplate their entire existence. The Red Sox will win today, but the Jays still up 4 games in the AL East. Very good spot to be at this point in the season.
It's time for the encore for the Philadelphia Eagles, or at least almost time. Regular season is almost here, and that means Philly has to make it through the preseason first. Louis DiBiase from Locked On Eagles joins me now. And Lou, I asked Kevin Ostreicher this question because I think it is so tough for teams that are ultimately going to be judged on what they do December, January, and they hope February to get into these games now. So from your standpoint, what is the value of these couple weeks here for Philly?
Yeah, I think for the Eagles right now, it's more about evaluating the second and third team, the depth, because when you look at the 2 Super Bowl runs that they had in 2022 and 2024, they were able to miraculously stay healthy. And of course, a lot of that's intentional. They've gotten a lot younger over the years, but a lot of it's luck. And they got lucky that Landon Dickerson is not out for the year, avoided a serious meniscus injury the other day. So for me, I'm really watching the depth because I just don't know how long that luck continues, right? I mean, I just think that eventually the football gods come knocking, and they got a ring off of it last year. So I'm really watching the second and third team. They lost a lot of starters on defense this year, and they're very young on both sides of the ball. So for me, it's evaluating the second and third team because I don't know what you can really get out of the starters, especially on the offensive side, that really aren't even playing in these games.
Where specifically do you have your eye on? Like where do you feel like, okay, the starters really need to be healthy, or at least we need to see something from these second and third team guys for me to feel confident about where this roster is?
For me, it's at edge rusher because I think we know they have one alpha in Nolan Smith. But outside of that, like Josh Sweat is now in Arizona. Brandon Graham retired. The Bryce Huff contract. Howie Roseman's been on a tear the last few years, but that was a brutal deal. So is Jalix Hunt ready suddenly to be the number 2 guy in year 2? Like, he had a pretty solid jump at the end of the year, but I don't know if he's ready for that responsibility. Josh Uche was a healthy scratch in Kansas City down the stretch. Is he ready to be a 3rd or 4th guy in the rotation? Azeez Ojulari normally gets you 5 to 7 sacks a year, but he has injury history. So the Eagles this year, it's a really high ceiling at edge, but it's the lower floor than it's been normally with Howie Roseman. He's taking a much younger, cheaper approach at the position. So I'm really watching the preseason and in camp. Like, can Jalix Hunt take that step, and are Uche and Ojulari good enough to just, be a solid rotational player?
This is the Howie Roseman model, though. Like, hey, I'm going to build this team. We're going to win, or we're going to be close to winning, as they were a couple of years ago. And then I'm going to turn over half this roster, and we're just going to figure it out all over again. Part of that, we're going to turn this thing over and figure it all out again, is what's happening at cornerback 2 right now. Because Quinyon Mitchell last year looked incredible. Cooper DeJean, who is mostly a slot player, looked incredible. Everyone who is an NFL fan saw what Jamar Chase did to Keely Ringo in that first preseason game. What is your concern level about that spot right now?
I'm a little bit concerned because I personally am high on Keely Ringo, but I also know there's going to be ups and downs with him. I think there are certain weaknesses that could be exploited, but I think when you let Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers walk in free agency, you were willing to go through those growing pains with Ringo. So now that I see Adoree Jackson getting a lot of first-team reps and they traded for Jacorian Bennett, my mindset is, what was the point of letting Slay and Rodgers go if you weren't going to be patient with Ringo? If Howie Roseman knew Vic Fangio, like this was just never his kind of guy, his kind of corner. It reminds me a lot of when Rasul Douglas was in Philly with Jim Schwartz. It just, the GM loved the player more than the coach did. If that is the same situation again,
ironically, Rasul would have been the perfect Fangio corner.
And he's a free agent, right? He's still out there. So for me, I like Ringo, but that game kind of exposes weaknesses that Fangio doesn't like. But then my whole point is, well, then why did you let Slay and Rodgers go if you weren't going to kind of let Ringo, who's only still 23 years old, he's younger than Quinyon Mitchell, why would you not let him go through those growing pains?
You and I on this show over the last couple of years have had a very interesting arc with Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. He is now a made man in Philly for life. Okay. Because he's got a Super Bowl win. You know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I think the NFC is more competitive this year. I think the roster advantage that Philly has going into this year is lower than it was last year. How much better does Jalen Hurts have to be? How much more does he have to do in this offense for them to be the best team in the NFL again?
I think he has to be somewhere in the middle of who he was in 2022 and 2024. So if he can be like the first half of 2023 minus the turnovers, that guy during the 10-1 run, I think that will be good enough because they're still going to run this offense through Saquon Barkley and that elite offensive line. I think that is your identity and you're not going to waver from that, but you can't be as uninvolved in the passing game as you were for the majority of the regular season. You will have to see
and the playoffs.
And the version of Jalen Hurts you saw in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, you're going to have to see that more this year. Now, I don't think there's suddenly going to be a team that's throwing 40 plus times a game, but I think there will have to be some median that's met because Saquon just is not going to get through a whole nother season and be healthy for the playoffs if he sees a historic usage rate. So he's going to have to certainly do more. I don't know if he's going to have to carry like in 2023, but it definitely have to be a step up from 2024.
Stay up to date all year on the Philadelphia Eagles by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Eagles on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Michael Penix Jr. got into it with the Titans during a joint practice. Falcons quarterback Michael Penix Jr. showed some fight, literally, earlier this week during a joint practice with the Titans. Locked On NFL host Tony Wiggins and Chris Carter believe that Penix is the biggest what if in the NFL, and earning the respect of his teammates like this can go a long way.
Yeah, you see the teammates responding to it, and that's the response. And shout out to Aaron Freeman and his guests, but that's the response that I anticipate people will have. Like, we appreciate it, but you don't want him doing that. But what it did do, it ignited the rest of his teammates, and they will also defend him to the death now. And I hate to bring this up because he ain't got nothing to do with this, but it's the total opposite of Anthony Richardson walking out and subbing himself out in the game, and then teammates looking around saying, I ain't never seen nothing like that before. Now they're saying, I ain't never seen nothing like that before because the dude is actually standing up for himself and willing to swing on people. I do know this, though. Whether or not the Falcons are good this year won't depend on whether he can fight, whether his hands are up to date.
I was going to go next, man.
It will depend on his ability to play. But those little intangibles will help those guys. At least they will never question his toughness. And if they have a question about anything, it might just be something else, but at least it won't be that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go next is that, like, look, this is a cool story for training camp. He's not hurt. You know, people can get like, wow, didn't know he had that in him. But it won't matter if he comes out and he throws 3 interceptions in the first game or he just has an average day. You know, he needs to come out and be the guy that the reason that they invested in the first round for. He needs to come out and play well, be a leader on the field. When you do that, then it's like, then you also have those stories in the background, like, you know, Michael Penix will fight you if you ain't careful. It's a cool thing to have in the background, but you gotta have more. And you know, Michael Penix might have more. I loved watching him in college. I thought he was fantastic. My biggest question for him in the NFL was, would his size hold him back, and would his injury history hold him back? And So far, I guess we'll just find out. But I certainly like him. I hope he does well. But certainly, like you said, he's got to prove it. Before we start talking about, oh, is he this and that.
This is cool, and I like the leadership. I like the mentality. But none of it matters if he can't play, and none of it matters if they're not winning games. Because that tough guy stuff is cool when you're winning. When you're losing, it comes off as lame. So it's all great now in August. They got to win football games. And that is something the Atlanta Falcons have not done on a consistent basis in what is coming up on a long time now. And there was a lot invested in Michael Penix Jr. And he's got weapons. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, they've got players. That offensive line is solid. It's time for him to play, not just have these moments. His story is incredible. Multiple season-ending injuries, the transfer, the run through the college football playoff for the University of Washington. It's an amazing story. None of it matters if they don't win football games. And finally, the Lakers are set to immortalize the slick back hair and Armani suits of Showtime legend Pat Riley. On February 22nd, when LA fittingly hosts the Boston Celtics, he'll get his own statue outside the arena, joining Kareem, Magic, Kobe, and the rest of the Lakers' bronze royalty. Riley coached the Lakers to 4 titles, 5 straight 60-win seasons, and 1 unforgettable era of fast break flash. Now he's permanently in the lineup on Star Plaza, and of course, deservedly so. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what will we see from the class of rookie quarterbacks over the weekend? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.